Chad, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, could you introduce yourself to the viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Chad Peters. I'm president and CEO of Ridgeline Minerals. We are a publicly traded company on the TSX Venture. Our trading symbol is RDG on the TSX and RDGMF on the OTCQB. I'm a geologist by training, but I got into, I actually co-founded Ridgeline back in 2018 already now. So been doing this a little while now.
Well, it usually takes longer time than one expects when
It
starting
does,
in
yeah.
business.
Yep.
So how does Ridgeline Minerals, how would you say that Ridgeline stands out from other junior exploration companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few pretty key things that kind of set us apart from a lot of our junior peers. We are fully Nevada focused, right? Precious and base metals. And I think the big difference is we have been able to ink over $60 million in deals with Nevada Gold Mines in South 32 and earn-in agreements on our projects. So something that kind of I think is really unique about our deals is not only are they high spend, these companies need to be very aggressive in their exploration, but at the end of the deal, if they execute all of the potential milestones in the deal itself, Ridgeline retains a fully carried interest all the way to commercial production on every deal that we do. So we're trying to minimize, we want to make new discoveries, but we're also trying to minimize dilution wherever we can to shareholders. And obviously, once the discovery is made, that's when the real spending starts. And we've found a way to secure funding through that very dilutive period. I think it's an exciting business model.
So, I mean, let's start. You just closed a private placement of 4.1 million Canadian dollars at
Yep.
15 cents a share. So, how much cash do you now have in treasury?
Right around, we took a rate down to the wire. So, 4.25, 4.3. It's kind of our, we were right down to the fumes at that point. And we did that on purpose. We did not want to raise in the tough market last year. Last quarter of 2024 saw a real drop in the markets from kind of late October all the way through the end of the year. So we held off on raising until things improved, and we saw a nice window in mid-January and jumped on it and had a very successful financing.
So what's the expected G&A spend, including everything besides actual exploration cost? And you can include holding cost in this as well for your...
Yeah, you bet. So just holding costs, for the year is around $1.5 million, $1.6 million Canadian. So G&A, holding costs, listing fees, you name it, comes in right around 1.6 million Canadian. And then on top of that, we have a pretty aggressive spend lined up for the year.
So in a conservative scenario where you don't upsize the drilling program, which we really hope you do, of course, then you have had success. How much do you expect to spend on Big Blue and Atlas? Yeah, the drilling, assaying, everything that's exploration related.
Yeah, probably right in around 1.5 million Canadian, and it could take it up to 1.75 million Canadian, and it really just depends, if we're still in good alteration and looking stuff in the deeper holes at Big Blue. You'd obviously take them a little deeper, so there's kind of a bit of wiggle room there. But we're trying to keep this first spend really, really. We're obviously going after two projects this spring at both Big Blue and our Atlas project, but we're trying to be really careful about our spend, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have enough capital in the treasury to fully not only drill our own projects, but we'll see the entire year go through and see a bunch of drilling done by our other three partners. Each of those partner projects, both Swift, Selena, and Blackridge, are all going to be drilled and fully funded by our partners, and we want to make sure we're in a good cash position to ride that out.
How much do you expect to receive from South 32 in management fees? You get 10% of the spend.
Yeah, we haven't even factored that into our budget this year, but we'll bring in roughly $400,000 US. So give or take with the exchange rate, somewhere around 600,000 Canadian just in management fees.
So all in all, you're fully funded until Q1 next year, for sure.
Yeah, comfortably. And I mean, if you were to factor in what we're bringing in our management fee against our G&A, the number that I referenced previously, that really trims it down, right? That takes us down to 1.2 million Canadian in total overhead costs and G&A if you factor in our revenues from that deal. So that deal was really critical for us. I love how that offsets our G&A, allows us to be really a part of the exploration process as well.
Who were the larger participants in the private placement?
Yeah, so actually it was mostly existing shareholders, actually upping their positions for the most part. I think a lot of people got very excited about, we're still getting final numbers from our shareholders or from our partners at South 32 and Barrick, NGM, I mean. But we're looking at between Ridgeline spend and our partner spend, somewhere between 17 and $20 million Canadian is going to be going in the ground this year across our 5 drill programs. And Ridgeline's only funding about let's just say 1.7 million of that. So that's an incredible risk reward, I guess you could say, at least in the junior space. So we had some really good shareholders come in and up their positions, probably the most prominent of which was Merck Investments. They were about a 2.9% shareholder pre-financing. They're now a rate at 9% non-diluted, and they're around 11.5%, 12% if you were to be calculate on a partially diluted basis. So they're a great group, long-term shareholders. We're really excited to have them come in and kind of be the cornerstone of that financing. And then it really came down to a lot of the same shareholders, yourself, you guys included in your team. Very excited to have you guys bring in a large position. So mostly just existing shareholders. A few new names that got us excited included Matthew Savard, out of Vior Inc., previous president of Osisko Mining. He came in personally on the financing, I think, which was a really kind of exciting validation of our business model, given that he had a ton of success as Andre Gaumont's right-hand man in the old Virginia gold mines days. So, which of course, that story doesn't need much of an introduction, but it was more than $1 billion, eventual win for Virginia gold mine shareholders. So he understands the business model, the hybrid exploration model that we're employing, the mix of deal flow and 100% exploration. And we're hoping to go out and find our own Eleanor here this summer. So yeah,
let's take a look at the cap structure now post race. We're good.
Yeah, you bet. And I will actually caveat this with this. This is the slides I put together this morning right before a call, which is why I was 10 minutes late. I just found out from my corporate secretary that I am slightly off. This should be 137 million shares outstanding, and that would take this up to 180 million shares fully diluted. So other than that, very close. So I'll update those slides after the fact. But management and insiders still own about 8.2% of the company. I own around 4.1. And we have out of this 180
that 4%, is that common shares, or is it on a full diluted basis?
Fully diluted. Yeah, fully diluted. And we also have another 11.3 million warrants right here that are expiring at 30 cents in about a month and a half. So that'll help clean up the structure a little bit. We'll get down into the 168, 169 million share range. And yeah, we're really excited. We're cashed up. We got great shareholders. Like we mentioned before, the same kind of group is still very much involved in our most recent financing, and hopefully we have a big year this year.
I think we should start actually with Atlas, which is the second project that will be drilled this year. So could you just walk through Atlas? How did you identify it?
Absolutely.
What is Atlas?
You bet. So here's the Atlas project. We actually identified, we've known about this project for 4 years. My VP Exploration, Mike Harp, and I. So we actually looked, this is a kind of classic Carlin type oxide gold project, outcropping mineralization at surface. It's really, that's what built the mining industry in Nevada, right, was the discovery of the Carlin type gold style of mineralization. So we knew about this project for years. It sits right here, just off the edge of the Carlin Trend. And we actually felt that there was a connecting fault zone that kind of went like this and connected all the way down into the Cortez Fault. So just a big regional fault structure. And so we've always really liked this area. If we zoom in on this black box right here, this is what started getting us really excited about Atlas. So here's the main Carlin Trend right here. And this is a northwest, typically has been viewed as a northwest trending system. However, there are northeast faults all the way through the Carlin Trend that are actually key mineralizing controls. And so what we see at Atlas is it is a splay off of the Carlin Trend. And it actually links right up. If you look, the Atlas kind of fault corridor, it kind of links right up with our Black Ridge deposit in Leeville area, right? So there's another northeast fault zone in the Emigrant District, which is just off to the southeast, which is like a parallel trend. Now, The Rain Emigrant District, which our VPX Mike Harp was a big part of the discovery at the Dark Star deposit for Gold Standard Ventures, that is about 8 million ounces of past production current reserves. Orla Mining is currently putting the Pinion Dark Star deposit into production right now. Now it's the same host rocks, same style of mineralization as Atlas.
How large is Dark Star, and from my recollection, it was the North Dark Star that he discovered. How large is that? What's the average grade?
North Dark Star is what really cracked it open for Gold Standard Ventures. So the combined Pinion Dark Star deposit open pit is roughly, I think, 3 million ounces, give or take, in resource right now that's going into development. North Dark Star is about 1 million ounces of I think around 1 gram per ton.
That's very good for oxides.
Yes, not bad at all. And so you have these two parallel trends. No one's ever explored the Atlas district, right, to find that parallel trend. So that's what got us really excited. When you actually look at this, we've since expanded the land position to include this box right here. It's kind of rounded that out. But this is what you call private checkerboard ground, which in Nevada, it means that there's nearby is the railroad. And so back in the I don't even know when exactly, in the 1900s, the railroad split off chunks of ground or the federal government and gave it to the railroad. And so they actually got these checkerboard patterns of private ground. So that's why, for example, this is its own chunk of ground in blue. This is another chunk. That's all private ground that is owned by, was previously owned by Newmont Mining and still is. Now, the ground that we staked, this is open BLM ground that is available for staking, but it's only available in a checkerboard pattern. That's the big reason why this project wasn't historically explored, is no one wanted to go and explore it when they felt that it was a fractured land position. In our case, we have a great relationship with Nevada Gold Mines. We've already reached out to them and said, hey, what if we were to combine forces here and combine all this ground that you guys own with what we own and make a nice big land package and go and make a discovery? And we've pitched that to them already. They're pretty intrigued by the idea, and we're working through that right now. But what gets us really excited is Newmont back in the 1990s did a whole bunch of work that showed that there's over a 3-kilometer oxide gold trend at surface on our ground. Rock chips up to 7.7 grams per ton at surface, high grade, in the exact same host rocks as that the North Dark Star discovery that our VPX Mike Harp made. So the original discovery hole that Mike drilled, that was 126 meters of 3.95 grams per ton oxide gold. That's a world-class drill intercept, right? And so that's what we're chasing at Atlas this spring. Mike's taking everything he knows about the Dark Star discovery. He's applying it to our project, and we're going to be drilling those holes, hoping to go after, 100 plus gram meter intercept of oxide gold starting at surface. And if we can deliver that, I mean, that's a massive win for the company, right? It's ground that we staked. We believe there's potential to consolidate into a much larger land position than what we currently hold. But even if we don't, you could fit, just for example, I've overlaid the Dark Star deposit. So we've taken the footprint of the Dark Star resource, which is here and here. And I've overlain that over top of our northern block. So you can fit over 1 million ounces of 0.9 just in this footprint right here. Not to mention, we also have a robust soils and rock chip anomaly down here as well. So even just without consolidation, we're talking about a 1 to 2 million ounce oxide gold target at Atlas itself, with potential to grow if we can consolidate more ground.
So all these rock chip samples, they have been taken by you, or has the end of that work been done by NGM?
The majority of this work was done by Newmont pre-NGM merger. So in the 1990s, Newmont did a bunch of work out here. They called it the Alpha target. And they were able to show that there's a very continuous oxide gold system that outcrops at surface for kilometers, and they never drilled it. And I don't know exactly why they didn't drill it, although I suspect, and so does Mike, that it's because it was the wrong age rocks in their eyes. So back in the 1990s and early 2000s, Pennsylvanian Permian age host rocks were considered poor host rocks by the operators in Nevada. That's since been proven incorrect. Right now, you're seeing multi-million ounce deposits hosted in these exact rocks. But back in the 1990s, no matter how much gold you saw at surface, it would be highly unlikely that you'd be able to go to your boss and get a drill program on one of these areas, because it was considered, no, you can't make a discovery in a Pennsylvania Permian rocks. So you could say that that's a I guess that was a bonus for us, right? Back in the 90s, they were viewing Carlin type deposits from a different view, and this project got forgotten about.
By the way, Gold Standard Ventures, which held the Dark Star deposit, and which also were the basis of their sale to Orla. How much did they sell for?
Well, after the discovery, of North Dark Star, that 126 meters of 4 grams per ton, they raised a bunch of money, and they're over about let's call it a 1 year period, give or take. Their stock went to over 800 million Canadian market cap. Off the backs of the Dark Star discovery. They ended up selling for around, it became a pretty ugly bear market. That was in 2015, 2016. You had a nice window in the markets. Since then, I think they ended up selling for around $200 million. But it still shows what the value of a deposit like that can be, right?
It certainly does. Could you more in detail say you have the rock chip samples, yep. But what similarities are you seeing to Dark Star deposit?
Well, just without having a strat section or up to be able to pull up for you, the main similarities is the same. There's 3 kind of primary formations within this Pen-Perm host rock package that were favorable at Dark Star. And so what we've been able to prove through mapping, Mike and Gabe have been out through this area walking and mapping, and they've been able to prove that the same host rocks that the top of the high grade zone at Dark Star hosted the mineralization, that same zone is outcropping right at surface. So it's either at surface or just below surface, based on what Mike knows of the stratigraphy. So what we're talking about is a carbonaceous conglomerate unit. So essentially you have a conglomerate. So your host rock is made up of different chunks of rock and classes of rock that can be anywhere from pebble size to the size of my fist. And within that, the kind of the cement that holds all of those chunks of rock together is really carbonaceous, or not carbonaceous is the wrong word, calcareous. So what that means is you have a very reactive host rock. So when Carlin type fluids flow into that host rock, they like that iron rich and calcareous matrix that is holding all of those rock class together. That's what gets replaced. That's what turns into your decalcified Carlin type ore body. So we know we have the right host rocks. They're very favorable to hosting high grade mineralization. And right where we see the 7 gram per ton rock chips up here is right in the top of that high grade horizon that Mike recognized from North Dark Star. So we're really excited. Typically that host unit is anywhere from 50 to 150 meters thick, depending on where you are in a fault, adjacent to certain faults and et cetera. So our goal is to drill hopefully 100 plus meter preserved section of this host rock. And based on the outcropping mineralization at surface, there's a very good chance that we're going to see some form of Carlin type mineralization that extends through that host rock section.
What work are you currently doing here before drilling?
Well, our NOI actually just got approved, so we'll announce that, I guess, in a couple of weeks. Our drill permit was approved. We're actually going to do a little bit of dirt work to get drill pads built here, and down here as well. And what we'll do is once those pads and roads are built, we'll actually go sample all the pads and roads of the exposed rock that's been scraped up by digging the new pads and roads. That'll help us get even a better idea of where we are in the stratigraphy, because we won't be having to look at weathered rock at surface. Mapping rock at surface has been sitting out there for millions of years, can be very difficult sometimes to identify exactly what you're in. Once you kind of scrape that dirt off and kind of expose the more fresh rock, it'll give us a really good idea of exactly where we sit. We'll sample it. And yeah, pretty much when the Big Blue program's done, we're ready to head straight out and start drilling this thing.
So how would a first pass program look like?
Yeah. So what we're going to do, we're going to have let's say a drill pad is on this black dot. We're going to probably put a pad potentially here and another one right about there.
I can see I see it. Perfect.
Oh yeah. Sorry. It's a little slow. What we're going to do is we'll set up across this mineralized horizon in the north block. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to drill fences of holes, kind of vertical and in both directions, like this, to fan out and just better understand stratigraphy. So that's the whole goal. Is we still need to understand, where we are, how thick is our host rock unit, right? If unfortunately, let's say 90% of that host rock has actually been eroded and we're actually looking at the bottom section instead of the top, there might only be 20 or 30 meters of mineralization, right? instead of 50 to 100 like we hope. So that's the goal, is go in, understand where are we in the stratigraphy, identify key mineralizing faults. We know that there's a couple really important fault zones that are running like this, kind of bounding the mineralization. So we need to drill across those, get an orientation on those structures, see how thick our host rock is and how mineralized it is. And then I think that'll really define what the upside potential is of the project.
How steep angle do you think you will have when you drill here?
Anywhere from vertical to 45 degrees. Yeah.
Okay,
just depending on where the pad location is. And we'll probably drill the holes to about 500 feet, or let's just say 150 meters, 200 meters.
Downhole.
Yeah. Yep.
Down. Okay, so it would be probably 5 to 6 holes.
That's the idea. Yeah. To start with anywhere from 5 to 6. If we have success, like, very significant success, there's always the potential to continue drilling. The nice thing is that we have about the Atlas project is it's shallow oxide mineralization. These holes are as cheap as you can get in Nevada, right? It's, as far as bang for buck, these are the best kind of holes you can be drilling. They're shallow, they're cheap, they're quick. And you can drill a significant hole on a gram meter basis if you're right.
So what does success look like? I mean, obviously, the discovery hole at North Darkstar is maybe not representative of a discovery hole.
that is certainly the high end of what we want to achieve on our maiden program, but that would be an absolute game changer for us. Really, it comes. I feel that we can drill 100 gram meter intercept on the first drill program. So whether it's 50 meters at 2 grams, 100 meters of a gram, you name it, that is kind of our benchmark of what we're going after. And based on everything Mike and our team knows about Darkstar, we think that is an achievable target with what we've seen at surface. So fingers crossed.
To have an economically viable, heap leach operation here in Nevada with oxides, I mean, what kind of grade do you at least need to have for it to be attractive?
The low cutoff grade on most of these oxide heap leach deposits is around 0.15 grams per ton. So that's the low end of what you can typically 0.15 to 0.2. On average, most open pit deposits in Nevada right now are in that kind of 0.45 to 0.75 grams per ton range. It's very rare to see something that's greater than a gram per ton. Darkstar is one of them. So that's our goal, is we want to get something that is both on the high end of the grade curve of what you see for typical grade of operating heap leach. We also want to see something that's on the low end of the cost curve. So good metallurgy, outcropping at surface, heap leach, you name it. So that's that'd be a very attractive discovery for not just majors, but mid-tier explorers and developers in Nevada as well.
How could a consolidation here look like within GEM?
Yeah, well, really what we try to do is we want to tie together these chunks of ground. So all of these, what I'm outlining in blue, would all be chunks of ground that would be owned by roughly Nevada Gold Mines or affiliates of Nevada Gold Mines. The idea would be is we're better off combining forces and exploring this as a consolidated chunk of ground than having fractured land packages, which has been the history of Atlas up until now, right? So we want to explore it as a consolidated chunk of ground. We have a great relationship with the NGM team, and we'd love to see something happen here. There's definitely no guarantee, but it would be a definite big win for the project if we can tie it all together.
Let's talk about Big Blue. So, I mean, since we last talked, you have published the infill IP survey. Could you talk about results from that, and also how you're planning now your first program, how that would look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's just a view of Big Blue, the old historic production at the Delker mine area across 3 different adits is right here. We have 2 primary targets at Big Blue, at the Ohio target and our Delker target. And what we did is we just completed infill IP that extended the lines all the way between the Delker area and Ohio. So it actually connected the IP results across both areas. So if we look to, let's say, the Scarn Hill area, for example, this is the original survey, or the original IP section that got us really excited, right? Because what it identified was this deep chargeability high that sits directly beneath the Scarn Hill mine along that same trend. What we've since been able to prove is if we step up, and we look to a resistivity section, for example, you can see that you see an inverse relationship with the chargeability. We see a charge high in the actual, what we think is the porphyry source to the skarn mineralization in the area. But when you put on resistivity, you actually see high, a high resistivity anomaly, which shows both alteration and potential mineralization bleeding up the dike swarm that feeds directly into that Scarn Hill mine. So we're seeing a really great relationship between charge and resistivity, the complementary anomalies here. So that got us really excited. And then we take a look up to the northwest or the northeast, where we're going to be drilling our first set of holes right in the Delker area here. Here's what that looks like. So here's our original section that we did. And what we saw in the original section was, okay, we have a nice little charge high right here, which could represent a potassic core bleeding up into the mine. But we weren't able to see the chargeability high that we expected to be sitting right off the edge of this fault zone. And that's because we didn't do a wide enough survey. So what we've since done is we completed an infill survey in Q4, which extended those lines. And here's what those same lines look like now. And so I still got to get those loaded up into Verify. I'm working on it this week. But you can see that original potential for a potassic zone, it actually shifted from the edge of this fault zone once we had more data, and it moved directly underneath the historic mine. So what's that showing is there's potential for disseminated sulfides, alteration, mineralization that is showing up right within that dike swarm that's bleeding that historic mine that has rock chips up to 15.5% copper at surface. We also see a nice subtle charge high right off the margins again, which gets us really excited because it's actually getting shallower in and around the Delker mine. If you look at the top of the anomaly here, right? So what we want to do is we were going to come in and we're going to drill a hole right across that potassic core, right? Drill beneath the historic mine, hopefully get into sulfide mineralization. There'll probably be some skarn, and hopefully we transition into more classic porphyry mineralization in the QFP dike swarm. And then we'd step back and drill another hole right into the guts of that chargeability high at depth. So the whole goal is, can we get some high grade copper skarn underneath the mine and a proper kind of classic porphyry intercept in the porphyry target itself.
But so the second hole, that won't be targeting that, you don't expect that to hit skarn or maybe dike swarms, but not actual skarn with sulfide and then sulfide.
Yeah, we'd anticipate in this area, we feel that the system would be transitioning down into an actual porphyry copper system at depth. But with that dike swarm, which bleeds up all the way through this corridor here, well, if you look down into the resistivity below, that dike swarm sits like this, and you actually see a strong resistivity anomaly that is bleeding off of that proposed porphyry source. So what it's showing you, and we're interpreting this as, is you have your porphyry source here that is pumping out all these fluids, the dike swarm, all the copper-rich fluids, and it's mineralizing along this structural corridor. And so we see that nice relationship between what we think the source rock is doing versus the fluids and the alteration halo that's pumping out into the surrounding host rocks. And so, what it's suggesting to us is the Delker mine is your, kind of the off-gassing or the upper reaches of the deeper system. It's just kind of a sign of what's beneath.
Maybe you can showcase where you're coloring them holes and how they're going from surface.
Yeah, for sure. So we're actually going to mix it up a little bit. I'm actually going to go back to here. Actually, no, I'll throw rock chips on it too. All right. So rock chips, this is just showing gravity, but here's the Delker mine right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up just south of Delker on a drill pad sitting right about here. We're going to drill back across the structural corridor and down beneath the existing mine. So that'll be like a 65-degree hole. Then we're going to step to the south, and we're going to drill another hole just off the flanks of Scarn Hill. And again, that'll be more of a steeply dipping hole, maybe drilling slightly towards Scarn Hill, but pretty much a vertical hole. And if you look at the cross section, for example, across Scarn Hill, again, that would be going after drilling a porphyry hole that looks something like this, right? And then to the north, we'll be drilling back across up near Delker, about a kilometer north, we'd be drilling back across that structural corridor.
That hole at Scarn Hill, do you still expect that to intersect Scarn in the beginning, or should it be more, intersect overburden until it comes into the porphyry or close to the porphyry source?
That's the interesting question, right? Because we don't know what to expect. There's never been a hole in that area. But this is all carbonate host rocks. all the way through here, or we propose their carbonate host rocks, your alluvial cover actually stops. You got about 200-300 feet of alluvial cover above. And then we think that carbonate host rocks, I mean, they could be skarn altered right around the margins of the zone. But yeah, so there's potential for there to be kind of like a skarn rind around the edges of the porphyry itself. That's a common thing that you see around the margins of porphyries and carbonate rocks. And we'd hope that as we transition into what we think is the porphyry source, you'd go into kind of a classic porphyry zone. A-type veining, granodiorite.
How deep will these holes be? Downhole and vertical?
Downhole, you're looking at, we'll take these things as deep as 800 to 1,000 meters just to test ideas, right? That would, 800 to 1,000 would take us well through the target and down, way down there. And, vertical, I mean, that's about the same vertical distance, right? So, 1,000-meter hole would take us all the way down to here. And then if you were drilling across here, you drill a hole, downhole, 1,000-meter hole would get you to around the same vertical distance. So roughly 800 meters below surface.
And 2 holes. Do you think that's enough to have a fair shot at success?
No, but I needed to raise $15 million if I wanted to go and drill a 10-hole program. No, look, it's a good first pass. We have pretty good evidence here that we have a strongly mineralizing system. So these first 2 holes are very strategic in nature. They're not just throwing wildcats down there, right? We're drilling directly beneath historic operating mines into very well evidenced IP targets, which historically are very good at identifying porphyry systems at depth. So we got quite a bit of confidence in this. I don't think it's a question of whether we're going to hit mineralization. It's just what type and how much, right? We know drilling underneath this old mine, we're confident we're gonna see some pretty exciting stuff. But it really comes down to, are we seeing narrower zones of high grade in the skarn, or are we seeing broad intercepts and more porphyry style mineralization that would promote more of a bulk tonnage style operation? So that's the kind of questions we're hoping to answer with these first few holes and go from there.
And the first hole that goes through the QFP dike swarm, that's the sort of more angular hole.
Yeah. So
and you start drilling in a week from now?
Yeah, drills mobilize on Monday.
Okay, awesome. So in other words, maybe when this interview is out, depending on, hopefully it will be out right when you start drilling.
But when we go, we'll be up and going. So it'll take about roughly a month per drill hole, just given the depth that we're drilling and stuff. So 3 to 4 weeks for each hole.
So in other words, Navala Rocks is a bit difficult to drill through.
We don't know. Honestly, like I said, first drill program on the project in over 20 years. And no one's ever drilled really any deeper than about here. Right. So, we're going to be drilling four times as deep as Newmont drilled back in the early 2000s. And, so we expect that it'll be some interesting drilling, probably. That always is in Nevada. The best deposits are a nightmare to drill. So my hope is it's difficult drilling. Probably means there's something exciting down there.
Right after, so in May, you will start drilling at Atlas.
Yep.
How long do you expect that program to take?
Oh, that'll be quick.
If you don't extend it.
No. Each drill hole is 5 to 6 days. So usually, so we're right in that kind of 25 to 30 day window.
And what would make you add? So in other words, you will be drilling, finished by this drilling by end of April, or?
Yeah, no, it's a fair assumption. First 2 holes will be end of April, and like I said, we have a bit of a slush fund set aside for follow up drilling at either Atlas or Big Blue, depending on results. So, we'd probably finish the 2 holes at Big Blue. Hopefully visually, copper's pretty obvious, copper systems. You can usually tell with XRF kind of what you're into. We'd wait for results at Big Blue while we go drill Atlas. And then between the 2, we'd probably decide, do either of these programs warrant additional follow-up drilling, in June, July.
How fast do you get assays here? And
anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. And if you have success, you'll probably send partial core to the.
Yeah, we'd
at least
send
get the assays. You might not release it, but you will.
Definitely, yeah. No, we'd send some select samples through important zones to help us understand, how mineralized is this system and get an idea of grade, and that would help guide our drilling as well.
If you have real success and you actually re-rate your cost of capital, so, double your share price, something like that, or more.
Sure.
I assume that you would raise more money and continue the program at either Big Blue or Atlas.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the curse of success, right? Like if we are successful in the drill program, it'll come with some additional dilution, but hopefully at far better valuation than what we currently are raising at, right? And the goal would be to advance the project to a point where we can hopefully monetize it with a mid-tier or a major.
But my point is, you would actually this year, this in this season, how to say it, extended program. You would not wait
Oh yeah.
until next year,
Oh, yeah.
2026,
No,
and,
for
and
sure.
follow up.
No, if we have material results out of either project, like I said, we have cash set aside in our budget this year that we could, do some follow up drilling very quickly. And if we were to do a raise off the backs of a re-rate, we would immediately get to drilling in the second half of the year.
So then, Selena, maybe we could talk about the results from today. I mean, today you announced the results from the empty survey.
Yeah, no, we're pretty fired up with the results of Selena today. So just for a bit of background for folks, Selena is a CRD project, so a carbonate replacement style deposit. Silver, lead, gold, and copper, bit of zinc in there as well. And what's really important to understand about Selena is we've already made a pretty significant discovery in 2020 called Chinchilla Oxide, which is right here. You have Freeport-McMoRan exploring the Butte Valley Porphyry, which is right here that I just circled. Now, that is the interpreted source to all of the mineralization that you see at the Selena project. We've theorized for a long time that the Chinchilla sulfide target, which sits directly between that porphyry and the Chinchilla oxide zone, is actually where the meat of the deposit is, but it's fairly deep, right? So we hadn't had a chance to really put any cash into it in a really difficult market like we'd seen over the last few years. We drilled up to, for example, right here, 15 meters of 155 grams per ton silver equivalent. And within that, we had up to 3 meters of 600 grams silver equivalent, which is broken out as 40 grams per ton silver, 7% lead zinc, and 3 grams per ton gold. Now, what we've been able to show and what we brought in South 32 when we did our deal with them last year is we said to them, well, if this is an oxide discovery that outcrops at surface at Chinchilla Oxide, and this is a porphyry that's the source, then this single drill hole that we drilled should be incredibly exciting, right? It shows continuation of system, but we didn't drill deep enough. In order to get the kind of confidence that a group like South 32 needed to see or to have to go drill, we're talking 1,000-meter drill holes to go all the way down through this target. They needed an MT survey, which they've used really effectively at their Taylor and Hermosa deposit in Arizona, which is a world-class CRD that South 32 bought for $2 billion back in 2018. They've been able to use MT to really effectively chase deep sulfides at depth, right, in these CRD systems. And so we did that MT survey, and here's what it looks like. So these contours right here show that there is a significant conductive anomaly that the MT anomaly survey is picking up that trends right between these two drill holes that we drilled in 2022. It trends right through the center of them, right? This is over 2 kilometers long in the north-south, 1.5 kilometers wide. It's about 500-600 meters tall. And we're going to look at what that looks like along section A prime first. And here's that section right here. So what's really interesting is just for a little background, MT is called stands for magnetotellurics. Now, what MT is looking for is it's measuring conductivity of the Earth's surface. So you're pumping electricity down into the Earth's surface, and then it's sending back a response to the surface, showing how quickly the electrical current is able to move through the rocks, right? Well, what we're seeing at Chinchilla Oxide shows a very subtle anomaly, right? It's oxidized mineralization, which means the MT survey is picking up a subtle anomaly, but it's pretty low key. And the reason is those oxide minerals, they don't conduct electricity like a sulfide mineral would. Now, we see a much stronger MT anomaly at the Chinchilla sulfide target. And the reason this gets us very excited is there is a key thrust fault pairing here and here that plumb and are feeding mineralization at both Chinchilla Oxide and Chinchilla Sulfide, and our target sits directly between those two. We drilled that single hole at hole 37 that hit 3 meters of 600 grams. It drilled just into the edges. I'm going to zoom in a bit for you guys to make it a little easier to see. They drilled just into the edges of that MT anomaly. Did not drill deep enough. It was an RC rig at the time, which is a depth constrained kind of exploration drilling that you can do in Nevada. You can only drill to around 750 meters effectively before it doesn't really work very well anymore. So we took the hole as deep as we could. This hole is bottoming out around 750 meters, and it bottomed out in CRD alteration, mineralization, barbecue rock, which said, okay, we're still very much in the system and we need to drill deeper. This MT survey has showed us that we need to drill a drill hole back across that and drill another hole on the fringes of the mineralization. I think we'll have a significant potential for a significant discovery to be made here. So it's pretty exciting.
So how would a first pass program, or how are South 32 thinking around this in terms of budgeting for this year, drilling, and what you would like to target?
It's still a little early to speak on South 32's behalf as far as budget. I know that they've proposed somewhere in the 3 to 5 drill hole program to test this. So we're still figuring out getting budget approval to do so. So I think we'll have more information on that probably in the next month or 2 months. As the goal is to have a budget finalized, but it would be roughly a 3 to 5 hole program, depending on scope, to both come in, drill across the core of this anomaly to the south, and then we're actually going to I'm going to cut a section now, BB prime, that looks right through the center of this target and is looking back in this direction. And that's this target right here. So what we were looking at before was right along. We were looking at the edge of the anomaly, which is the deepest part of the system. We actually see a 2 kilometer long MT anomaly from here to here that is actually shallowing all the way up this thrust fault. And that sits right here. So this is a major thrust fault. The same, we're looking at it from a different direction, but that's helping control that mineralization, that alteration, which we think is represented by this MT anomaly. You can see that it wraps right along that thrust fault. We can drill deeper holes here around where we have known drill hits. So we know that, you keep 1 foot in ore is the idea, right? You know that you have a drill hole here and a drill hole here that hit. So let's drill a fence of holes into the deep part of the section. And then we'd follow up with additional drilling and fences all the way up into the more shallower mineralization, which, we're talking about 800 to 1,000 meter drill holes. At the northern end, we're talking about 1,500 meter drill holes on the southern tip of the system. So we're really excited about this. I mean, this is the MT anomaly matches our geologic model almost perfectly, right? It's matching the structural model. It's hosted within the same host rocks that hosts the Chinchilla Oxide zone 2 kilometers to the east that outcrops the surface. We think the intensity of this MT anomaly represents a semi-massive to massive sulfide body that is being controlled by these fault structures. So, like I said, we have multiple drill holes that drilled just on the edges of that showed you have CRD system, but did not drill deep enough to fully test the target.
Swift, as you didn't release the second hole from last year's program, I think we all can assume that it didn't really hit anything interesting.
No, that's not true. We actually we did hit more of the same kind of anomalous gold that we've hit all the way through. So if you're looking, last year, the big intercept was hole 6, right? It hit 2.7 meters to 7 grams, a meter of 10. That was kind of the game changer drill hole for us, in that it was the first high grade intercept ever drilled on the project. Hole 7, we're going to look, I'll just zoom in here. Hole 7 was essentially drilling south of hole 3, right? So hole 6 was the red star that sits right here. I'm going to zoom in a bit for you, just make it a little bit easier to see. So what we did is hole 7 was drilled about 1 kilometer to the west, southwest of hole 6. And so let's just say this black line represents hole 7, but it was drilled about 1 kilometer away. So that hole hit a lot of very similar mineralization to what we saw in hole 3 by the looks of it. We just had our quarterly meeting yesterday. Hole 7 certainly wasn't a game-changing drill hole, but it again shows that there is a very large mineralizing system at Selena. At Swift. Even when we step out 1 kilometer from existing drilling, we're still hitting a very wide, low-grade gold system. What we have to do this year is use all that information we've learned from all the holes all the way up through 7 as well, and try to drill more of this. But we want to drill deep, thicker intercepts, right? So the goal is can we continue stepping out, drilling infill drill holes between all that mineralization, as well as stepping to the north and to the south along trend and trying to find, 10, 20, 30 meters of 7 or 8 grams per ton. That would constitute a bona fide discovery that has real economic potential in the Cortez Trend.
Will you release hole 7?
Oh yeah. No, we just had the assays just came back. We just had our steering committee meeting yesterday with Barrick. I'm putting together a press release right now, just from a disclosure purpose to get those results out, and that'll be out hopefully in the next few weeks. Just got to get it written and get approval from NGM.
So how would a follow-up program look like? I mean, this year's follow-up program.
Yeah, we're currently getting final budget approvals for a program this year. We're hoping to drill somewhere between 5 to 8 drill holes, and what we'll do is I will just zoom in for you from a plan view, just to give you an idea. All of the drill holes have been, if we consider my blue stars drill holes, this is roughly the footprint of drilling that's been drilled at Swift. Let me zoom in a bit better for you. So this is the Southwest Swift area right here. This is where we've been having the most success. Hole 6 was right here. We've had multiple drill holes scattered throughout this area. All of them are hitting wide, low-grade mineralization, except for 6, which finally hit high-grade. What we would look to do with this year is continue stepping in between the highest priority zones. There's a nice corridor of mineralization that's kind of like that. We would step in, continue drilling tighter spaced holes, hoping to vector into higher grade mineralization.
Perfect. When will you know if it turns out to be 5 or 8 holes?
Should know in the next month. Yeah. So NGM is still going through the same thing as South 32 as well, right? They're still finalizing drill budgets for this year. But there's a lot of excitement internally in NGM for this project. It's a great location, and we're finally seeing the kind of high grade they need to see to host a deposit. So I think we're going to be closer to the, hopefully closer to the 8-hole range than the 5, but it's up to them to make that final decision.
And when would you start drilling, do you think?
Hoping to start drilling sometime in early Q3 at the latest.
Yeah. Okay, so probably sometime during the summer.
Yeah, start in the summertime. It's pretty, it can be pretty ugly, ugly weather all the way through April at this elevation at Swift. So by the time the snow melts and everything like that, you get all our logistics in order and drill pads built. June, July is a reasonable start date.
Black Ridge. So 2 holes will be drilled this year, if I remember correctly. What are you looking for, and where would you put the holes? Maybe also could give a very quick overview of Black Ridge.
So, Black Ridge is right on the Carlin Trend, directly on trend of the Leeville deposit, which I've highlighted in blue, and the Fallon discovery, which sits right here. So everything is trending. Mineralization is continuing to trend in this direction. Black Ridge would see a couple holes right across this fault corridor. This is an important controlling fault structure right here. Sorry, I'm just going to draw it in white. That's called the Four Corners Fault. That hosts all the mineralization at, on the edges for Leeville, for Fallon, everything along that side of the valley. So a couple holes right across that fault corridor will tell us pretty quick whether we have something exciting.
And this is deep drilling, like 1,000 meters at least downhole.
More like 15 to 1,700 meters.
1,700 downhole.
Yeah. So that's why we brought in partners like NGM to help us drill this project. They have the expertise with deep drilling in Nevada that very few others do. And so we think the best chance of success in getting a couple good holes all the way to target depth through here would be with our partners at NGM.
Is it confirmed that there will be 2 holes?
That's what it looks like. Yeah. So that's early. Again, they're finalizing their budgets as well, but it'll be 1 to 2 holes, just deep wildcat hole testing to see what that could look like. And if you look in 3D, you'd be drilling something like this, coming in and drilling across that zone. Now you're chasing mineralization that's hosted in the same horizon here, and right there. That would be the target.
What other projects in stake? I mean, you have 5 projects that will be drilled this year. What other projects and staking activities are you working on in the background?
Yeah, so we're constantly always looking at new ideas. We haven't staked anything else that we're going to be advancing this year, and we'll see. We're going to really try to stay as good as as disciplined as we can, and really stay in the precious and base metal space. There's lots of opportunities for critical metals in Nevada, which we're always keeping an eye on. Tungsten, antimony, etc. So there's also opportunities there as well, but trying to stay pretty disciplined for this year, and we'll see where it. If we have something that's really exciting, we'll certainly put stakes in the ground on it this year.
So, where do you envision Ridgeline Minerals in a year from now?
Well, hopefully multiple new discoveries have come out of this program. I mean, this is for us. This is the biggest year in Ridgeline's history for exploration budget. I don't think we've ever drilled more than 2 projects in a single year, and we're seeing 5 projects being drilled with early indications of budgets somewhere in the, like I said, $17 to $20 million Canadian being spent. So that's just phenomenal. I mean, as far as for us to put $1.5 million in the ground and see 20 million, let's say, get spent in return, that's incredible leverage on exploration dollars, and it really increases our chances of making a meaningful discovery. We have the kind of backing from these major groups that if there's success, they're going to keep drilling.